Hey friends, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name's Luis. I'm a third-year medical student from the Ateneo School of Medicine and Public Health, and in this video, I'll be teaching you how I use Anki effectively for my classes in medical school. As some of you may have seen from my previous videos on active learning and spaced repetition, I use Anki because it integrates those two principles to help me retain the information from my many lectures here in medical school. Having used it since my first year in medical school, I've learned quite a lot on how to use it effectively to retain all the information I need for my exams. So now, as you can see here, I'm on my Anki homepage where I can see all the decks that I have with all the main decks that I have within my profile. So a deck is essentially like a reservoir where you put in all your flashcards where that you're gonna study. But within those decks, you can have sub decks, so you can further subdivide a category. So, for example, if you're studying cardiology, you can further divide it into anatomy, physiology, biochemistry, and so on, so that if you want to study for one particular subject that you feel that you're weak in, you can focus on that without having to study your other flashcards. So I'll show now how to test deck. So here we can have this test deck be our main deck, and then I can create another deck, sub deck 1, and by clicking and dragging it under the main deck, it makes test deck become a folder where I can hide sub deck 1 under it. So by pressing this toggle, I can hide my sub decks, and then by pressing it again, I can reveal what sub decks are under this main deck. So once you've made your decks, the next step is to fill them with your flashcards. And as a student, there are 3 types of flashcards that you'll primarily use, especially while in med school. And these are your basic cards, closed cards, and the image occlusion cards. So let's start first with what basic cards are. So for basic cards, it's actually quite simple in concept in that there's a front and at the back. And the front is basically whatever contains the prompt or cue that you want to produce an answer to. So here, for example, you can write what is the powerhouse of the cell. And then at the back, you put the answer, which is mitochondria. So you add that. And then when you go to study it, you're going to see here that you see what is the powerhouse of the cell, which is what you put in the front. And then when you go to reveal the answer, it reveals what's at the back, mitochondria. So that's the basic card. So the next type of card is the closed card. And for me, closed cards are like a more advanced type of basic card in that it allows you more flexibility in making the type of questions or cues that you want to train your brain to answer. So, for example, you can still use the standard question and answer format, what is the powerhouse of the cell? But unlike in basic cards, you need to put the answer in the same text box as where you put the question. So what is the powerhouse of the cell? And then you can put in the lower space mitochondria. And then using the keyboard shortcut Shift Command C or Shift Control C on PC, you can it'll create a closed deletion. And what this will do is that it will tell the program that this is what it needs to hide when you go to study the card later on. And then here you can see the box says extra. This is where you can put little bits of information to help you get context of what the question is about, so that even though you put a very specific trivial fact in the text box, you can review the context behind that question so that you're not completely confused about why did I add this question, what is it in the grander scheme of the lesson. So for example, here I can put it is an organelle. Yeah. So we can add that to the deck, and just to show you what it'll look like when you go to study it, you can see here that it included everything that was in the text box. So what is the powerhouse of the cell? And this blue brackets with the 3 dots inside is an indication of like this is what you need to fill in the blank for, or what this is the word that you need to contain. And when you go to reveal, it shows that mitochondria was the answer. And then it also shows whatever you put in the extra portion text box. And what I like about closed deletion is that you don't need to stick to the question answer format, but you can also introduce fill in the blank format style questions. So you can, using the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell again. using the Shift Command C keyboard shortcut, I can put the close deletion mitochondria, and then doing something that you can't do in basic, I can put a close deletion for powerhouse. So you can actually make 2 questions for 1 card just by using the close deletion tool. So add that to your deck, and when I go to study it, so blank is the powerhouse of the cell, mitochondria. Okay, next. And then here you see that the same question before as the mitochondria is the blank of the cell, but now instead of mitochondria, it's now powerhouse that has been removed for us to fill in the blank for. And I think that's very powerful, so that you can test yourself on statements that have like 2 important facts of information that you need to know for the exam, and that makes it more efficient for you to making flashcards for yourself, because it's like just making 1 flashcard, you actually generate 2, and I find that's very powerful in the long term, especially when you have to memorize tons of facts. The next type of Anki card that I really like is the image occlusion card, which is generated using the image occlusion add-on for Anki. And what I like about it is that it's very useful for helping you memorize tables or diagrams that you can't really, that's really hard to generate in a typewritten format in your basic card or in your closed card. So here I have open an image I downloaded from the internet of the human arm, and it's showing the different parts of the human arm, and it's labeled accordingly. So what you can do with the image occlusion add-on is that with the tool selected here, the rectangle, you can draw rectangles to cover the labels so that you can test yourselves on if you can identify which part the label is trying to name. So like for example, as a test, we'll just cover the major bones of the human arm and forearm. Here you get to select on to add cards, and since I don't want to be able to know what the other parts are, and I want to just focus on what is being indicated, I will hide all and guess 1. So as you can see there, 3 cards were added to the deck. So let's see what they'll look like when you go to study them. So as you can see here, this was one of the cards that we generated, and this pink card indicates the card that we have to answer. So like it's pointing to this bone. So this is I think the radius. Yeah. So we got that right. So let's move on. This is the ulna. Yeah. And then lastly, this is the humerus. So as you can see here, like this can be very powerful if you're trying to memorize specific parts of the human body, or especially like with like the blood vessels of the brain, with the specific muscles of the hand, where there's a lot of components that look similar, and you really need to differentiate one from the other. So the image occlusion tool is a very powerful tool for that type of learning. The great thing about Anki is that there's an extensive range of pre-made decks that I can download from the internet, especially those based from USMLE resources such as Patoma, Sketchy Medical, and Boards and Beyond. And by using these resources, they cut down a lot of the card making time when studying for my lectures, so I can go straight to studying and not spend so much time generating the flashcards. My favorite pre-made deck is the Anking deck for the good people over at the Anking YouTube channel, because it combines several popular pre-made decks into a single resource. Though it's not perfect, since it doesn't cover everything I need for the lecture, because the deck is primarily designed for you to take the USMLE and not study for your in-house exams. It has just enough cards that I can use for my lecture, so I don't spend a lot of time making my own cards. Though I do not recommend that you rely solely on these pre-made decks, since it will usually skip out on a lot of specific information that isn't exactly relevant for the boards. In addition, the deck contains over 30,000 cards, so you have to really pick and choose which cards to include in your studying. What I do is that I keep all the cards in the Anking deck suspended, and as I study or read the chants for the specific module I'm in, I unsuspend the relevant cards so that when I go sit down to review the flashcards, I only review the ones relevant to my upcoming exam. So as you can see here, what I have on screen is the browse portion of Anki, and here you can see all these cards highlighted yellow, and what these cards are, when they're highlighted yellow, it means that they're suspended, as I was saying earlier. So when I'm studying, I can say I want to test myself on how many rings do pyramidines have, and I see here that the Anki deck has that card. Instead of making that card myself, I will just simply unsuspend that card by clicking the suspend toggle here, and it will unsuspend that card. So when I go to review this deck, it will reveal to me this card, but not these other cards that are not necessarily relevant to what I'm studying. So I only end up studying the unsuspended cards and keep the irrelevant cards out of my study session. So now that you know the basics, you're ready now to start making your own flashcards for your classes. If you want to learn how to use Anki efficiently for your exams and how to use it to take notes during lectures, make sure to check out my other Anki video. And don't forget to leave a like and subscribe so you don't miss out on any future videos like this one. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.